for the battered but proud people of the Empire State. From the financial and entertainment epicenter of New York City to the sleeping and empty small cities and towns of upstate, which once bustled with manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
Hey guys, this is Andrew Hollister, your host of Radio Free New York. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. We are broadcasting from the WYSL studios, and today Bob Savage is not with me, which is a little bit of a different change here. Bob's out looking at colleges with his son, so I hope they're having a great time checking that out. They're traveling around. So you just have me today, and we're live on WYSL. We're also live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm getting the chat fired up for you guys right now so that you guys can comment online with any questions you might have, any comments about today's discussion. And I see you guys are already starting to pour in. I see Nathan's in here, Barbara's in here. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. And also my listeners who are loyal listeners on WYSL as well. And looks like David and Dan are popping in here as well. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much. And Donna. So here we are. Today is Friday, and I don't have Bob to bounce off as the sounding board, so I'm going to rely on you guys to just drop comments on me as much as you can. And I'm going to ask you guys, if you haven't already, to head over to YouTube, search Andrew C. Hollister, and make sure you subscribe to that channel on YouTube. That actually helps me out. If you think that what we're talking about on this radio show is important, what YouTube does is the more subscribers we get on YouTube, they actually suggest the content to people on the homepage. And if you believe that what we're talking about is important and that other people should hear it, head over there, subscribe, because YouTube is actually starting to push this show out to people who might not be looking for it because of the subscribers that we have already, which is amazing. And we just really want to get that content out to other people. So if you guys can do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And today we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. And I thought about taking a break from politics today. And realistically, that's probably not going to happen. I had this idea. I was like, oh, maybe we'll do Finance Friday and we'll talk about finances. And we'll probably still dive into finance stuff. I want to share some advice, and maybe not even advice, just things that have been really successful for me that I typically share with friends on a one-to-one basis to help them be maybe just a little better with their finances. So if we get through everything else today, we're definitely going to go through and talk about that. I also want to pump Monday's show, because on Monday, we're going to have a special guest in here. I'll probably promote who it is over the weekend. I'm just going to double check with them and be sure that for sure they're going to make it. And then I will let you guys know exactly who that is, but definitely make sure you make Monday's show, because we're going to have a lot of fun on Monday. Before we move on, I want to remind everybody that next week, Thursday morning, is Ben Wassel's court case. So you guys know I've been pumping this. I've been promoting this as much as I possibly can here on the air. Those of you who are listening to every show, please don't tune me out for the next 30 seconds. There's only going to be 2 more shows where you guys are going to hear this, today's and Mondays, because by Friday, this will have already happened, and I'll actually be here next Friday telling you guys what the result was and what's happened, and let you guys know exactly how everything went. So Thursday, 9 a.m. at the courthouse, 50 East Ave, Rochester, New York. That's where I'm asking you guys to come meet with me. I will be there. really in protest against the SAFE Act. Now, I've been told the courtroom is very small. I've been told that probably we all will not fit. So come dressed warm, come dressed appropriate. I heard there's going to be 2 news stations there, and I think they're going to give us a chance to speak and allow us to be heard. So if the SAFE Act is important to you, if Second Amendment rights are important to you, if the Constitution is important to you, I ask you guys to consider carving this time out of your schedule and showing up to be boots on the ground, to show that this is really important. If you can't make it, then what I would ask you to do is actually consider making a donation to his legal fund. And maybe you decide you don't want to donate to his legal fund. Maybe you decide that that's not the cause for you. And I understand that. Everybody has this different cause. In that case, try to donate to something else then. Try to make some sort of impact. That's why I'm asking you guys to do February 28th. Once again, that's this Thursday, 9 a.m., 50 East Avenue in Rochester, New York. And I'll just bring up one other thing because, somebody asked me, they said, well, what are the circumstances of this court case? Is this a bad guy type thing? And my opinion is no. My opinion is no. But let me address that. Let's actually take a step. Let's take a step back and think, what if this guy was a bad guy? And really, let's think about that. Let's take that in. Let's think, what if this guy was a bad guy, and what if what he did was wrong? If we go down this path, we should ask ourselves something. And that question is, should we not stand up against a bad law just because maybe it catches a bad person? And I really want everybody to think about that, because this, I feel, is a justification that we hear from many people on the right and on the left for laws. And you hear it, and I know there are some people that do not like law enforcement, and I know there are some people that are super, super pro law enforcement, and I know people kind of in between. And I don't want to pursue the pro or anti law enforcement discussion. I want to just put out there that many times law enforcement sees these bad laws as tools to put away bad people. And you'll hear this. You will hear people say something along the lines of, yeah, it's a bad law, but we couldn't get a drug dealer without it. Or, we couldn't get them on this, but we were able to get them on this little law that's not enforced too often. And what that logic does, although I understand where it's coming from, I disagree with it entirely. So I want you guys to know that. I totally disagree with the idea that it's okay for us to have bad laws that could hurt good people just on the off chance that maybe we catch a bad person. I don't think that's right at all. I understand that this is becoming a norm in society, and I hope that I can be a voice to say, no, that's wrong. And I hope you'll stand up with me and say, you know what, you're right. We shouldn't be doing this as society. I really, really think that is so important for everybody to address, and for everybody to stand up and say, bad laws are not okay. And just because a bad law happens to catch a bad person does not make it okay. Because every time we create a bad law and say it's okay if it catches a bad person, we're also saying it's okay if it harms a good person. So we can't have it both ways. We can't say, oh, rights only apply to some people and not others. And if we think that they're a bad person, the rights don't apply. We need to step away from that. We need to walk away from that entirely. So I just wanted to make that a really, really hard intro here because I think it's actually probably going to come up during this court case. The media is probably going to come up and say, hey, this guy was charged with this. Why are you guys standing here? Why would you stand up for Ben Wassel? You don't know who this guy is. You don't know this or that. And you know what? You're right. I don't actually know the guy. I'm not friends with him. I have no personal attachment to him. I don't. But what I know is that it is wrong for us to prosecute good people with bad laws on the off chance that maybe we're going to catch a criminal in the process. It's becoming in society okay to put away non-violent, innocent people in case we catch just one bad guy. That's not how our country was founded. That is not okay. Our country was founded with the principle that we would rather a bad guy go free than put an innocent man in jail. And today that's changed. And that's one of the things I'm going to stand up for time and time again, to say, no, why are we creating laws that hurt good people? Just because maybe we might catch a bad person? I don't think so. That's totally wrong. You guys might disagree with me. I don't know. And I'd be happy to hear your comments. Let me think, give me feedback. Send me an email. Call into the show. Let me know what you think. But I'm going to tell you, even if you think I'm wrong on this one, I'm going to stand pretty firm on it that bad laws that hurt good people are not justifiable in case we catch a bad person. So that's my take. That's Ben Wassel. I hope you guys meet with me Thursday morning, 9 a.m. And also, somebody just commented in. They said, where's Scope or the NRA on this? That's a great question. Here's my perception of what at least representatives from the NRA have said, and Scope probably is going to take the same stance. And Scope might be doing something. The NRA might be doing something. I haven't personally seen it. I am a member of Scope. I do get the emails. I have not seen a single blip about this in the emails. My guess is that they are worried about something and don't want their name attached to it, which to me is a load of crap. But you guys know where I stand. You know that the person's reputation is not what I care about. So maybe there's something, with his reputation. Maybe there's something with the circumstances of this case. I don't know. I know that this law is wrong, and I'm going to fight against it. I don't care who the guy is that's being prosecuted by this bad law. I want the bad law gone. My guess is that Scope and NRA either don't know about the case, which I'm not sure how they wouldn't, or that if they do know about the case, maybe they don't have funding because they're losing membership left and right because they are not taking action. That's my perception. And I know that's the perception of a lot of other people listening. Or they're seeing something that maybe they think is not good, and maybe they don't want their name attached to it. I don't know. So that's my take on that, guys. We're going to take a real quick break here, and then we're going to be back here in a moment on Radio Free New York.
We'll treat you like family at Mark's Pizzeria. We'll treat you like family at Mark's Pizzeria. Great pizza, fresh and good, simply the best in your neighborhood. Come in, we'll get to know you, call you by name. We can bring it to you any time of the day. Mark's Pizzeria, we'll treat you like family. Mark's Pizzeria.
This is Dom Genova, owner of Genesee Valley Motors in Avon, your no-nonsense car dealer. Well, we're your no-nonsense truck dealer, too, selling Rams and Fords up to the mightiest that they make. And we have a shop with Master Techs open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. 6 days a week, even Saturday, so you can get your truck serviced when it's not billing hours for you. You may not be used to that. Visit RochesterWorkTrucks.com. That's RochesterWorkTrucks.com.
You're listening to Radio Free New York
on the WYSL stations.
All right, guys, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and I am running the show solo today. So it's just me. Bob's out and about. Want to thank you guys so much for joining me here, and thank everybody who's also coming in online. Sometimes people ask me, how can I support the show? So I'll give you guys a couple ways. One is, if you want to support the show and you have a business, I would love to promote your business, give you ads on the show, and you can just buy airtime. It's a really simple way to promote your business while also supporting Radio Free New York. You can also buy some Radio Free New York swag. So if you jump over to Amazon, search Radio Free NY, you'll see we've got some t-shirts and hoodies there. Buy those. They go straight to supporting the show. That helps us stay on the air. And then people are always welcome to make donations. If you're interested in making donations, just reach out to me and I can send you like a PayPal link. All that money, once again, I don't do this show to make an income. Actually, I don't make an income off the show. It just supports, pays for the airtime for us to be on here. So would love to have your guys' support. Ross is commenting in. Hello, Ross. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show. And we're going to move on now to something that I found that I thought was interesting. And by interesting, this happens all the time. And I'm sure this is going to become a thing in New York if it hasn't already been put in the works. And this is actually happening in Charleston, South Carolina. So what they're doing is they're cracking down on short-term rentals. So what's a short-term rental? Anything less than 29 days, according to them. Now, why did I pick this? What does this have that interests me? Well, first off, this is private property. So the government is coming to private homeowners and saying, you cannot rent out your home for less than 29 days. It is not the government's business what you do with your property and for the duration that you do it with. So if you wanted to rent out your home for a weekend or for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that should be perfectly fine. Government should have no say in what you do with your property, especially when it has no impact on the people around you. But essentially what they're trying to do here, they are trying to get money out of people who are profiting off their property or making extra money on the side through things like Airbnb and other similar services. Now, some of you might be listening and you might say, hey, what's Airbnb? You know, I hear people talking about this. What is it? Airbnb is simply an app that you can post your home for rent for. And it can be just about any amount of duration. People can browse the app, see that your home's available to rent, and rent it. Now, the issue here, I don't see it as an issue, but there are some issues. If you're a municipal government, you're thinking, well, I'm losing revenue because I'm not taxing you like a corporation. That's where local government starts stepping in and trying to find ways to basically tax you more. That's really what it comes down to. Now that you're making money, the government wants their hand in your pocket. They want to take your money. So what they're doing is they've actually established a team. Oh, so wait, let me take one step back. So finishing explaining Airbnb. Say you want to go on vacation. It's kind of cold up here in New York right now. Maybe you decide you want to go to Florida for the weekend. You could download Airbnb on your phone. And no, Airbnb is not sponsoring this show or anything like that. It just happens to be what I use and a lot of other people use. It was a $20 billion industry last year. So a lot of people are using this. You pop open the app, you say, oh, I'm going to this town in Florida. You can see all the homes for rent there on Airbnb. You can choose one. Say you want to stay 3 days. As long as it's available, it shows you all the amenities in the home. Might be just a bedroom, might be a full house. Kind of depends on what you're looking for, how many bathrooms, whole everything. You mark, yeah, I want for these 2 or 3 days. You cash out, you do your thing right there. It's basically allowing people to rent out their home short term and make some property off of it. So you do all that. Airbnb handles the exchange of the money, some of the insurances, the cleaning fee, like that whole thing. It's all built in. People have been using it. Like I said, Airbnb did $20 billion last year, $20 billion. So people are using this a lot. And they should be able to. It's their homes. Well, government's stepping in saying, wait, $20 billion industry. You know who needs a piece of that? You know who needs to be in the middle of this transaction? We do, the government. We need to be the middleman somehow. And so that's what's happening here in South Carolina. They are actually fining people over $1,000 for doing this. So you try to make a little extra money by renting out your home when you're not using it. Or if you have a home that's maybe a rental property that you're having trouble renting, but you can rent it out a weekend here, a weekend there on Airbnb. They've essentially made it so you can't. And if they find out you're doing this, they fine you over $1,000. And here's the thing. They've now created a team of investigators to hunt people down and fine them for using their own property in a way that they see fit, which I think is just terrible. And Nathan's commenting in on Facebook saying, any anti-short-term rental laws are a huge violation of property laws. And if you can rent it out via Airbnb, it actually increases your home value, your property value. Now can become a passive income property. Nathan, I agree with you 100%. This is so wrong. This is your private property. Government should have no say in this whatsoever. And Johnny actually brings in something that I actually saw on the campaign trail, which is the hotel lobbyists specifically don't like this. And there's actually a reason that they don't like it that I partially agree with. And the reason they don't like it is they have to pay special taxes to New York State for operating a hotel. But the people running Airbnb aren't paying these special taxes. So now what we have is we have taxes being applied unequally. I agree. And so, you know what I told these people? I said, you know what? You're right. Why don't we eliminate the tax on hotels then? And the next step is what showed me that it wasn't about the taxes, because I suggested, you know what? You're right. People should not be being taxed unfairly or unequally. Nobody should be getting special treatment. Let's find a way to eliminate the hotel tax. Their response was no. Why did they say no? Because they know that the tax makes it so that it closes the market. People can't afford the tax. Therefore, they remain competitive in the market. This is a classic example of not just government telling you what you can and cannot do with your private property, but special interest groups pushing for tax, pushing for regulation, because they know it will give them an unfair advantage because other people won't be able to afford the tax and remain competitive. So there's actually two separate issues going here. Both are totally wrong. I'll give you another example. This is just like Uber and Lyft. When the taxi companies lobby against them and say something like, yeah, you know what? You can't have Uber and Lyft because we pay a special taxi license every year to be a taxi. My response to those same people was the same thing. Okay, well, if we get rid of the taxi license, they weren't okay with that. Because once you eliminate the taxi license, they know that that's a barrier to entry, especially in New York City. A taxi license could cost $10,000, $20,000, even more than that. They know the average guy can't afford it. So only big business wins. Only people pooling their money and their resources together to buy one of those taxi medallions, those are the only people that wins. Then it doesn't allow for competition in the market, and it drives prices up. It's why taxi drivers and taxi unions hate Uber. They can't stand Lyft, and they're constantly fighting against it, pushing for extra taxes on rideshare and things like that. This is special interest. This is bad for us. This is bad for competition, because here's what's happening. Once the prices of these other services go up, people can't afford them anymore. We're basically putting ourselves in a situation where we have new product, new industry coming in, revolutionary ideas to bring more services to the average Joe and to allow the average guy or girl to make money from home or to make money by running their own small business. And the big corporations, the big lobbyist groups are trying and pushing for heavier taxes, heavier regulation so that you can't be successful. And that's what's happening. So I'm totally against this type of operation, totally against this type of government overreach. I really see it as total government overreach, special interest groups trying to tax people out of their ability to make a living, and it cannot be there. We got to get rid of it. We've got to stand up. We've got to say, this is not okay. Now, here's the thing. All of these groups will not come out and tell you this. They will not say, oh, you know what? We're just going to tell the general public this is a bad idea because they're taking some of the income now. And government's not going to sit there and go, you know what? We're just going to tell people we need to be the middleman and we can't have a transaction without our money in your pocket, without your money in your pocket going into our pocket. Government never says that. Special interest group never say that. What they do is they say something like, oh, it's for this safety reason. It's for this, health reason, something like that. So in the case of what's going on in South Carolina, they're saying it's to prevent garbage and noise. You know, if you rent out your house as an Airbnb, the people might drop garbage on the street. They might be loud because it's not their neighborhood. Meanwhile, there's already littering laws. There is already a noise ordinance. But the vast majority of people will look at this and go, oh, yeah, you know what? I don't want noise in my neighborhood. I don't want garbage in my neighborhood. Never mind, there's garbage all over their neighborhood anyways, but that's a different issue. So they use these things that sound kind of like common sense, like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you know what? We should punish these people. We should make it so they can't merge. We should make it so they can't make an income. And very quickly, people start changing their mind and thinking, oh, it's okay to tell you what you can and cannot do with your property. And it's not. I'll give you one more example, like Uber and Lyft. The taxi companies were saying, well, you can't drive with Uber or Lyft because maybe they don't have insurance. Maybe those people haven't gone on a background check, and maybe they're dangerous people. And to be honest, those can actually be valid concerns. And so a lot of people were turning against Uber, turning against Lyft, trying to regulate them out of existence over things that people are like, yeah, I want to be safe. Yeah, I want to know that there's insurance if there's an accident. So people start looking, going, yeah, you know what? We can't let you work for yourself. We can't let you do these things, which is wrong. It's totally wrong. But a lot of people justify wrong things with valid, legitimate concerns. And Uber and Lyft immediately, they stepped forward and said, you know what? You have legitimate concerns. Let's address this. We will insure all the drivers. We will run background checks on all of the drivers. And here's something that's really great about emerging industries, something that Uber and Lyft brought in that taxis don't have, and has actually made rideshare way, way better. A rating system. So when you ride with these people, and Airbnb has the same thing, a rating system. So you visit one of these Airbnbs, you ride in a Lyft, you ride in an Uber, you actually rate your driver. You can rate based on the cleanliness of the vehicle. You can't do that with a taxi. You got a dirty taxi, you got a dirty taxi. He's going picking up the next guy, and you're in a smelly taxi. That's that. Well, now with Uber and Lyft, you can actually rate your drivers. Guess what? Drivers that have dirty cars, smelly cars, maybe they're not good customer service. Maybe they don't care about you. Those people get poor ratings, and then people don't accept rides from them. So we've actually taken a new emerging industry, and we're now making things better for the end consumer. Well, the taxi companies definitely don't like that. The hotels definitely don't like that because it's not as easy to rate a specific room in a hotel or a specific taxi driver. And people know that. So if they see a bad review of a hotel or a bad review of a taxi company, they might go, well, it was just that one driver. He probably doesn't work there anymore. So they kind of get let off the hook. But with Airbnb and Uber and Lyft, you actually have a situation where there, you can choose the customer service you want. You can choose the quality of vehicle you want. I actually met some people who they actually won't choose a Lyft or an Uber that has like a certain level of gas consumption vehicle. So now they're actually able to choose vehicles based on, like, they want hybrids. They want to ride in a hybrid because it makes them feel good. It aligns with their values. Well, that's actually pretty cool too. I don't personally do that, but Americans have kind of forgotten how to boycott business and industry that doesn't align with their values. And I think that that's part of why we have these giant corporations that invest so much into things that people don't like or desire, but they're literally using their own money to fund it. Well, Uber and Lyft, and they're actually allowing you to do that now. So if you feel very strongly about using a hybrid vehicle, you can choose to only ride in a hybrid vehicle. You're essentially boycotting vehicles that don't get a certain gas mileage. That's a great, amazing thing. Why would government take that away from you? Don't let government do it. Stand up against it. Say no. And I think we'll be better for it. We will absolutely be better for it. So, guys, we're going to take a quick break here on Radio Free New York. We'll be back in a moment.
You're listening to the voice of liberty.
WYSL.
AM 1040 Avon, Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, FM 95.5 Spencerport, and WYSL1040.com everywhere.
Avon Feed and Supply announces a new taste in local cheese. From dairies in Livingston, Genesee, and Wyoming counties, enjoy Craig's Creamery Cheese from 8 family farms made right here in Livingston County. Craig's Creamery Cheese, simply made with all natural ingredients. Choose your favorite variety exclusively in our area at Avon Feed and Supply. Bottom of the hill, West Main Street in the village of Avon. MasterCard, Visa, and Discover cards always welcome.
I'm Las from Action Towing and Service. What you can expect when you come to Action Towing and Service to get your vehicle fixed or checked out or diagnosed is the detailed description on what the vehicle requires. And you can also expect to know exactly what the plan is going forward, whether it's something that you can wait on the repair or whether it's something that needs to be repaired immediately. We make sure that you know exactly what the vehicle requires. Come down and visit us at 275 Marketplace Drive, right off of Jefferson Road.
You're listening to Radio Free New York
On the WYSL stations.
Hey guys, we are back on Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and I am just kind of scrolling through the comments. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for commenting in on the show, and a couple more people joining in. Faith, Craig, my wonderful wife just joined us online too. So guys, thank you so much. Lorraine, thank you for joining us here. Somebody actually mentioned in the comments that in their county, I believe it is, they're actually suggesting an extra $50 a night for Airbnb stays. So could you imagine that? I mean, I know it's kind of hard to put in perspective for some people. So if you were to go somewhere, go to a hotel, maybe it's $120 a night to $180 a night. Some of these areas, you can get an Airbnb for as low as $40 or $50 a night. Sometimes even lower than that. If it's just like a bedroom in somebody's house, you can even rent a couch. So you can literally go on Airbnb and be like, hey, I'm passing through this town. I just need a place to lay my head. You can rent somebody's couch for like $20. You show up there, just take a nap on the couch and leave. You're good to go. I would ask all of you to think about this. Now, obviously not everybody is going to sleep on some stranger's couch, right? And I get that. There's a certain level of, I would never do that. For younger people, it's not as strange to them. Like, I don't know that I would ever rent somebody's couch. Maybe I would. I guess maybe I would. But I know a lot of people who would rent somebody's couch. But if that couch was $70 to rent because it's $20 going to the renter, well, probably like to be honest, probably only $12 going to the person who's renting their couch. Then another $8 in fees that's going to like Airbnb or whoever's providing that booking service. And then $50 going to local government. So now your $20 couch rental jumped to $70. Guess what? You're not going to rent that couch or that bedroom. Maybe you rent a room in their house for $30 or $40. Well, now it's $80 or $90. You're probably just going to opt to go to a hotel. And that's what these special interest groups want. They want it to be so expensive that you just choose to use them as well. They want to regulate the industry in such a way that new competition cannot emerge. So that's absolutely right. And some people are commenting in, like Nathan here says that when he went to New York City, he used Airbnb, saves him hundreds of dollars in a trip. My wife, when she was in New York City, she did the same thing. She used an Airbnb and saved I think at least $100. So yeah, it's a great way to make things more accessible, make it available so that you can travel more, but not if it gets regulated out of existence. If you regulate it out of existence, we are now allowing lobbyists and elected officials to control the market. Then we don't have free markets. And a lot of people, when they argue the biggest difference between capitalism and communism, it always comes down to the freedom of running your business, the freedom of markets. The thing is, when government introduces regulation like that, you're actually taking that freedom of markets away. You're actually moving in a direction that puts us in a bad spot like communism does. So we got to look at this stuff very, very critically and understand that that's what's happening. So you guys know I always ask you to email in, call in, any of that with comments. And I actually got an email last week, and I didn't even realize I saw it last show. I meant to bring it up, and I think last show just moved so quick. Like even during the show, Bob was like, wow, that show just blew by. We covered so much that I totally forgot to address this. So this is an email from Thomas, and I'm just going to share it with you because I believe I spoke about term limits, not last show, but 2 shows ago. So it would have been last Friday. So I'm just going to share your guys, share the email with him and then respond to it because he's probably listening to the show and he's probably like, that guy never responded to my email. So I'm going to make sure I do that. So he starts off saying he heard part of the show and he liked some of the points, but he differed on term limits. And he says a career politician should get out when he feels he's not benefiting his voters or district. Tough call going against one's ego. Totally agree. It's hard for people to step away, 100%. For me, it's a matter of useful talent that betters the lives of district citizens. The voting records and what is included, not included, and who made these recommendations. However, there is a flip side, that being the laws having an expiration date. Some laws should be made non-binding. Why? Their purpose may not be as it once was. I speak of horse stealing. That's a great example. Horse stealing is probably no longer a common occurrence here in the United States. And certainly not where I live in the city of Rochester. If anybody's stealing horses, the only horses that are available to steal are at the zoo and the police horses, and chances are you get caught pretty quick. He goes on to say, in the 19th century and before, this was a crime that carried the death sentence, especially in jurisdictions west of the Mississippi River. The horse means both survival and life, hence to steal one meant hanging. In New York State, such a theft would probably get a felony charge of grand theft horse, but what if that horse were a racehorse? If there is a case for the hanging charge. Why? Depriving the owner of his income and survival. In colonial New York, it was a crime to deny a traveler free lodging and a meal for one overnight stay. Why? Indians and animal dangers, as well as colonial competitors such as the French and Dutch, that would not be tolerated today. However, old laws are still brought to court for a legal decision. Thus I say old laws should be retired from the books. And then he goes on to also say that he agrees with divulging financial supporters and amounts. That was in response to me saying that elected officials should wear their donors on their sleeves or on their shirts like NASCAR drivers. And he says, I would include lobbyists too. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And he says these scoundrels are like corrupt politicians too. And I think we actually probably in the first two segments covered that piece heavily. But I do want to address the both the expiration date of laws and term limits, because I think those are both to address and readdress. So for term limits, I think we're probably going to disagree a little bit, and that's just because since we don't have term limits in Congress today, I don't see these people in Congress stepping down, and I do believe that probably the majority of them who have been in for decades now, well, maybe they feel they're benefiting their voters in their district, but I don't believe that they are. And I feel like a lot of other people don't. However, the argument could be made that, well, they're getting elected, so maybe the general population believes that they are still benefiting the voters in district. I don't know. I've seen a lot of studies that show that you get better service to constituents when term limits are involved. Those are studies I've seen. I'm not saying they're the end-all, be-all, but I do believe that term limits, the President of the United States, for example, he gets 8 years. That's it. I think if the highest position in the country, it maxes out at 8 years, I think we should follow that example for the rest of the country. My personal opinion. But I absolutely love and 100% agree with you on an expiration date for laws. I think that every law should have an expiration date on it. The only exception would be constitutional amendments. I wouldn't put expiration date on those. That is our founding document. That is the basis of our rights. But everything else, yeah. I mean, why do we have horse stealing laws? I know in the city of Rochester, there's some really, really old archaic laws. I used to do a bit on this show called just Bad Laws. And there are laws on the books here in New York that say you're not allowed to legally hang your clothes outside to dry, and you need a special permit for that. And you can go to jail for it if you don't. And just like a whole bunch of other stuff that's just wrong. And maybe it had a place way back in the day. So a lot of them I read and I go, we should have never had this law anyways, but still on the books today. And if there was an expiration date, I bet you that law cycles around and people go, oh, yeah, I really can't justify voting yes on this one. I just can't. I'll give you guys a really, really good example of a law that has been in New York State for, I think it's over 100 years now, our scaffolding law. This law is a terrible, terrible law. It makes construction way more expensive, insurance way more expensive. It makes construction jobs in New York State take way, way longer than any other state. We're the only state in the nation that has the scaffolding laws. But it's not a priority to any politician to remove it. So we're stuck with an awful, archaic, bad law that increases the cost of our taxpayer-funded projects, increases the cost of building, economic development, everything, whether private or public sector, doesn't matter, increases all of these costs, and nobody is stepping up to fix it. Now, if it came up for renewal because it had expired, and people said, yeah, you know what, we're going to have to vote on the scaffolding laws, I bet you the labor unions and the small little guy contractors and the big construction firms and maybe the insurance companies, but I think the insurance companies probably make a ton of money on it. So the insurance companies, maybe not. But all the little guys and even some of the big guys would stand up and say, no, let's get rid of it. This is awful. It makes our projects take way too long. It makes it cost way too much. In some cases, the insurance fees on a project cost more than the labor on the project because of this law. So, Tom, I just want to let you know I agree with that 100%. I think we're going to differ, maybe disagree a little bit on term limits, but that's okay. You know, we're not going to agree on everything. But thank you so much for the email. I really appreciate it. Guys, we're going to take one more break here. I'll be back in a moment.
Whether your new address is down the street or across the country, moving can be complicated. Make things simple with Clark Moving and Storage. Based in Rochester, New York, you can trust our expert team of professionals to pack, ship, or store your belongings safely and affordably. As a proud member of the Better Business Bureau, Clark Moving and Storage has helped thousands of customers make a seamless transition to their new home or business. Here, we believe no one customer is the same. That's why it's important to us to customize our relocation packages to meet your specific needs. Are you looking for more than a household mover? We also specialize in office relocation, transportation of high-value equipment, and logistics management. And take advantage of our Go Minis, portable storage containers. They're convenient and secure.
Locally owned and operated, we've served Western New York since 1985. For all life's big moves, choose Clark Moving and Storage.
Call 585-594-5000. Visit clarkmoving.com.
You're listening to Radio Free New York
on the WYSL stations.
All right, guys, we are back here on Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. And once again, going through your guys' comments here, I see a lot of people joining into the show from all of the different platforms. Thank you guys so much. We've got people coming in from Twitter now as well. And just going through some of the comments, David, he commented something pretty cool, which is we need a 2 to 3 hour show. That's awesome, David. I don't know if I can talk quite that long, to be honest. Larry Sharp, who I ran my campaign with last year, Larry could talk for 4 or 5 hours straight, no issue. Sometimes I struggle getting to the whole hour, so I appreciate that. I will try to build up to it, and maybe one of these days we will have a 2 or 3 hour show. Nate also commented in asking, and this is Nate, not to be confused with Nathan, who brought some of the other comments in. Nate says, what are your thoughts on the divide New York idea that's been thrown around again lately? And that is a phenomenal question, because there's a key point there, which is again and lately. So for those of you who don't know, there has been a movement going on now for a while in New York State, at least since I first became aware of politics back in 2013. And that is the idea of dividing New York State into New York and New Amsterdam, which there's some history back there because New York State used to be New Amsterdam. And I don't have enough time to go through the history. And to be honest, I don't know all of it. I'm still learning. So I actually have a book about it that I'm hoping to read sometime in the next few weeks. But it's the idea that New York City's culture is just so different than upstate New York's culture that there are a lot of people that believe that we should split into 2 separate states so that we can have our own governor that represents our values, and New York City could have their own governor that represents their values, aka they can keep Cuomo and we can have our own guy. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? Now, there's a lot that goes into this, and I would say that when I first found out about the Divide New York push, I think it wasn't called Divide New York at the time. I think it was called like the New Amsterdam Project or something like that. To me, that sounded pretty good. You know, back in 2013, I was thinking, yeah, you know, we really need this. We got to get rid of Cuomo. Upstate New York has just totally different values than downstate New York. Downstate always seems to control the votes. They have the money. They have the power. They have everything. And we just live as peasants, which all of that is still basically true today, with the exception of upstate does have the votes. Upstate just doesn't get out to vote. So that's the first issue there. The second thing is, when we divide New York State into two states, whether that's New York and New Amsterdam or something along those lines, we're going to realize something, I think, as a state, as a people, as a culture, that people still won't be coming out to vote. They won't. Guess what's going to happen? The people from New York City are going to start moving to upstate. Why? Well, upstate won't be paying for things anymore, like the MTA and other things like that. They will start to have some painful decline, or they will increase their taxes to make up for that. So you're going to start having New York City downstate people moving to upstate anyways. Guess what's going to happen? Instead of having one tyrant in New York State, we will now have two tyrants, upstate and downstate. So in my opinion, dividing New York State sounds amazing, but I don't think it's the answer. I don't think it's the answer at all. I don't think that solves our problems. I think what's going to solve our problems here in New York State is actually giving counties their power back. I think that's the only way to solve this issue in New York State. So I'm going to talk about home rule, and I don't have enough time to cover all of home rule, but I'm going to hit some really basic concepts. If you followed Larry Sharp running for governor last year, if you followed me running for lieutenant governor last year, if you followed us in any of our events through all 62 counties in New York State, you probably heard us say, let counties be counties. Let you be you, let me be me, and just stop with all this government overreach. That concept can work here. It's already working for New York City. New York City basically operates with home rule already. It's all of upstate that isn't. So what would home rule look like? That looks like your county saying, Albany doesn't control us anymore. We control us. That looks like you voting locally and that mattering locally. That looks like state overreaching laws. Your county passes a law that says no. Now, this sounds easy. This sounds like a great utopia. You mean our county can be totally broken off from New York State and ignore all the laws? Today, that's not quite how it would work. There's a lot of work to get there, and it can be done. But first, people need to make the step, take that first step to make this happen. So the very, very first step is you have your county adopt a resolution for home rule. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now. You are thinking exactly what I was thinking when I first heard it, and that is, yeah, didn't we do that with the SAFE Act? Didn't we get 54 counties to sign a resolution against the SAFE Act? Don't we still have the SAFE Act today in New York? Yes, 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 and yes. The problem is that's where it ended. And we shouldn't have stopped there. I shouldn't have stopped there. But at the time, I didn't know there was more to do. In fact, I knew very little. And I'm not saying I know a lot today, but I know much more than I did in 2013. That was just the first step. That shouldn't have been the end. So first you start by getting your county to sign a resolution that says, yeah, we're going to enact home rule. It's already written in the New York State Constitution. First step is legislators sign a resolution. Guess what? There's multiple other steps that we need to follow through with. So if you're interested in home rule, if you think that, I don't want New York City to trample all over my rights. I don't want New York City through Albany to dictate how I live my life. Well, then you need to start looking at home rule. I'm going to give you guys a resource right now that has a lot of writing on it. It even has a template that you can print out, bring to your legislators, and these are your county legislators and your town board members. Bring it to both of them. Ask them to sign it and ask them to pass it. That's step one. So if you go to thelibertyden.com, that was put together by my friend George Cabello. He's been on the show a couple times. He did actually mention, he came on one of the shows. We spent a whole hour talking about home rule. So you can actually go to YouTube, search Andrew C. Hollister, and then find the Radio Free New York episode on home rule. Everything is detailed there. Then you go to thelibertyden.com. You click on the home rule button. You download that template and you print it out, and you're going to take it to your legislator, and you're going to ask them to sign it, and you're going to ask them to enact it. And when it happens, you just fill out the contact form at the Liberty Den and let them know that your county's on board. We're building a coalition of counties right now to say no to Albany, to say no to downstate New York. But this is just the first step. After that, we've got to get it on the ballot as a referendum, which isn't hard, but it's not going to be possible if we don't start with the resolution. So resolution is first, thelibertyden.com. No, I don't get paid to promote it, but seriously, it's what I believe is our first step. Because if we divide New York into 2 states, what you will see in less than 5 years, I say, less than 5, definitely within 10, but I'm thinking less than 5 years, you will find that now instead of having Cuomo being a tyrant of all of New York State, you'll find that we have 2 tyrants in New York, not just one. And I don't think that's the answer at all. So, guys, that's my answer. That's I know it's a lengthy answer. Thank you so much for commenting that in. And we're going to wrap up the show here. So Monday, I've got a cool guest coming on the show. If you guys don't know, I do the shows Monday and Friday, 1 p.m. Tune in on Monday. We're going to have a whole bunch of fun. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on Radio Free New York. I will catch you on the next show.